You're not letting Kieran have a question today.
Hang on, don't start out that way. We'll start again, all nice and calm.
On behalf of the Minister of Finance, last week Treasury released its long-term insights briefing, which highlights the dangers of excessive government spending. The report explores the role of fiscal policy in economic shocks and crises, including the way government finances were used during and after COVID-19. The COVID-19 response cost New Zealanders $66 billion, or 20.4% of GDP. By way of comparison, this is twice the cost of the Canterbury earthquakes as a proportion of GDP, which cost around $23 billion.
Supplementary. How did the COVID-19 response impact Crown debt?
Oh, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, non-urgent COVID spending, including spending on measures that were not tied to COVID, was a key driver of structural deficits in the years after 2021. COVID-19 spending sent net core Crown debt on an aggressive upwards path. From financial year 2015 to 19, net core Crown debt was relatively flat, but from 2019 to 23, net core Crown debt increased by 169% to over $155 billion. Treasury notes in the long-term fiscal insights report, as the economy recovered in the second half of 2020 and into 2021, it advised shifting towards more targeted support and recommended against further stimulus from budget 2022 onwards. However, only 30% of funding allocated to the COVID-19 response was spent in the 2019-20 year. In fact, 36%, roughly a third, occurred after June 2021, including when inflation hit 7.3%.
And so this will be
supplementary. How did New Zealand...
concise question with a concise answer.
Supplementary. How did New Zealand's fiscal response to COVID-19 compare with those of other developed countries?
Well, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, Treasury report finds that the overall scale of our discretionary fiscal response was one of the largest amongst advanced economies. The report does not suggest that spending when crises or shocks occurs is bad. It does, however, make the point that we should interrogate the scale and the quality of the spending. There were numerous programs and initiatives not tied to the shock that had a lagged impact on the economy and proved difficult to unwind later. For example, increases to benefits, Jobs for Nature program, and so-called shovel-ready projects, some of which are only starting now. It's a very, very diplomatic way of saying we are still paying the price for a big spending approach that diverted wildly from a pandemic response.
Cameron Brewer.
Supplementary. What are the key insights and lessons from the report?
On behalf of the Minister of Finance, the lesson from the mishandling of the COVID response is that while there are times when governments have to increase spending in response to major events...
Just a minute, sorry, a point of order, the Honourable Kieran McAnulty.
Thank you, sir. We have not raised the point of order up to now because everything has been absolutely compliant with what's required in Speaker's rulings and standing orders. But as soon as a minister starts to, well, basically asked to provide his opinion on what the lessons are, we're straying into the exact territory which you have warned the government not to do. And the minister's description of the COVID response in that answer is in breach of what you've guided him not to do.
Well, can I just say that I didn't quite hear that part because there was somebody waving their arms up in the broadcasting box and I thought there was some sort of a thing going on that we should be aware of, but apparently not. Minister, you've just heard the concerns. They are concerns that I've outlined before. Please keep your answer within the bounds of that previous ruling.
On behalf of the Minister of Finance, the lesson I take from the COVID response is that there are times when governments have to increase spending in response to major events, but it is really important that the fiscal guardrails are restored as soon as possible. It's easy to turn the money tap on, but harder to turn it off. It is imperative, I believe, Mr. Speaker, we return to surplus and get debt down as soon as possible after an event, because the reality is New Zealanders will face other emergencies and we need to start saving for them.
Supplementary.
The Honourable David Seymour.
In what ways and how do New Zealanders pay for a fiscal blowout of the type he's described?
Well, Mr Speaker, I'd refer the member to the pre-election economic and fiscal update 2023, issued just before the change of government in 2023, which indicated increased debt, increased unemployment coming into the future, and inflation and a very difficult economic environment that would persist for the next few years. That is precisely what has transpired. Fortunately, it's literally your own report. The fiscal settings left by that member. It's their own pre-election economic and fiscal update, for which he now seems to bear no responsibility for whatsoever. Actually, unemployment is now lower than was forecast in the pre-fu in December 2023.